Hey everybody, it's Mark again. So my friend that I go see all the time, I work on this clock at his house. And I work on several clocks while I'm at his house. And he started having trouble with it after I left. And I got videos and all this stuff. One of the things that he was having trouble with is the clock wouldn't cuckoo. And so I told him send it to me and I'd work on it for him. And I don't do this for just anybody. He's a very good friend of mine. And I want to show you why this clock is not cuckooing. Well, it moved. the wire that goes in the staple, it's not squeezed together, as you can see. And when I first took the clock out of the box, the wire was preventing the door from opening. So when you squeeze these wires together, make sure that they are squeezed all the way. As you can see, this thing is not squeezed all the way, and it was catching the wood, preventing the door from opening. There's other issues with this clock, but that was the first issue I noticed. So now it's cuckooing. But he told me that it wouldn't stop cuckooing. And one of the reasons why it won't stop cuckooing, and I told him this over the phone, is this wire right here that stops the governor band. If it's not bent right, it will not allow it to stop cuckooing. Let me get all these chains out of this bag. Stand by. And it's still not stopping the cuckoo. So instead of taking everything apart, I'm going to take the dial off. You can easily do that by putting a flat tip screwdriver underneath the dial. It's only held in by nails. Unless your name is Ron Rosencrantz, and then you might have used your brad nailer to put the nails in. He's got an electric brad nailer, and those a little bit longer nails than and he also uses Aleen's glue to put the dials back on. Do you see why this thing is... You see why it's not stopping the cuckoo? I'm going to have to pull this movement out because somehow, in the process, and I don't know how, the tab is not going into the Pac-Man. The rack stop lever is not dropping. If it was to drop, then we would be okay. But you see, I'm lifting the rack out of the way, and it's not dropping. So there's a spring that makes this stupid thing drop, but when I'm pushing on it, it's not dropping. So I don't know what's going on with this movement, so I'm going to have to take the movement out to try to fix it. But typically, you should be able to pop the dial off, and a lot of times the reason why it continues to cuckoo is because the tail of the rack is behind the snail, but that's not the case here. So I'm going to have to take the movement out. In order to take the movement out, you have to release the bird from the door. So let me take the movement out and go from there. I'm going to take this movement out so I can explain to you why I say if this wire that stops the governor pin is not positioned properly, it's going to cuckoo and cuckoo and cuckoo. Now this wire is attached to this post right here, which in turn is attached to this rack stop lever, which is this lever right here. With the movement out of the case, you will see that rack stop lever drops like it's supposed to. and it will stop. It will cuckoo like it's supposed to. All right, it cuckooed and then it stopped. But as I said, this wire right here, if it's touching that music box, it's going to continue to cuckoo because it will not allow this rack stop lever to drop. So it's going to do this right here. It might even allow the rack to climb on you to this part right here, but if it's touching, it's hard for me to do this and show y'all, but if it's touching the case whatsoever, it's going to continue to allow the clock to cuckoo because it's not allowing it to drop into the Pac-Man's mouth like it needs to. And so I told him through a video chat to make sure that that wire is not bent wrong. And you can see it comes straight up and then it goes forward. When I put this thing back in the case, because I know it works with it out of the case properly, what I'm going to be looking for is this wire to make sure it's not touching the music governor whatsoever. So if you have a top-mounted music box and your cuckoo will not shut up, the first thing that you need to look at is this wire. It might not be a wire exactly like this. It might have a different lever on it. The bat-off movements use different levers, but this is a Snyder and Son. But look at whatever is stopping the governor fan. If it's going too far to the right of the governor fan, it's going to continue cuckooing because this wire cannot be released away from the governor fan, which in turn is not allowing this rack stop lever to drop where it needs to drop. And so it's cuckooing just fine out of the movement. Now I'm going to take a break before I put this thing back in the movement. Sorry, before I put this movement back into the case, I'm going to take a break. And I don't know whether it was this clock or another clock, but one clock, the minute hand, the clock would run all day long, but the minute hand would not move. And that's because this plastic wheel, which connects to another plastic wheel, would have a crack in it. Or if even if it don't have a crack in it, it could be loose. Typically, they have cracks in them. And so it might run from, let's say, 5 minutes after the hour until 25 minutes till the hour. And then when it goes to cuckoo, or 5 minutes till the hour, when it goes to cuckoo or play music, it very well could be that this wheel is loose because it has a crack in it, or the wheel that it connects to is loose because it has a crack in it. And so when it has that added pressure, your hands can't move because this wheel is spinning on the shaft. So check that out. As I was saying, a lot of people don't understand the top-mounted music box systems. But this piece of wire here, if it's too far to the right of the governor fan assembly, or if it's touching the housing of the governor fan assembly, it will not allow the rack stop lever to come back down. As you can see, when I move that wire, it moves the rack stop lever. And so your clock will continue cuckooing if this cannot come back down. There could be other things that make your clock continue to cuckoo, and the main thing is this third wheel with warning pin is hitting this tab. You should be able to see that pin hit that tab when I move. There's that pin right there in camera, and now it's hitting that tab. When it is all said and done with, this pin from the A rack stop lever has to be sitting in the mouth of the gathering cam with gathering pin, or what I call Pac-Man. And I like making sure it's dead center in that mouth. Um, there's a tab that hits the cuckoo bird rod locking lever coming off the rack stop lever. This tab right here. If that tab is hitting, this continues to go up and it will continue to cuckoo. It could also make your bird do this while it's cuckooing. So there has to be clearance. When it's done cuckooing, as you can see, this catches that. But when it's done cuckooing, if this tab is not bent down far enough, it will never release this lever right here, and it will continue to cuckoo. Just because people don't believe me, I'm going to go ahead and bend that tab up. So now, I take that back. It's got to do with the bird coming back in. But as you can see, the bird did not go back in, and that's because I bent that tab up. Now I'm going to bend it down. And if it's bent too far down, now my chain's getting all screwed up. If it's bent too far down, it will continue going. The bird will continue doing this while it's cuckooing because it's hitting this cuckoo bird rod shut off lever every time it cuckoos, so the cuckoo comes in and out of the door. Anyway, I'm going to put this movement back in the case. But again, if you have a top-mounted music box and it's typically a wire like this, some movements like Backmeyer and Klemmer, they use a different system on some of their movements, but typically it's a movement like this. Smeckenbecker uses a totally different system, but most top-mounted music boxes use this wire to stop the governor pin while it's cuckooing. But if this wire is bent wrong, it will continue to cuckoo because it cannot be released to allow the rack stop lever to come down and shut off the system. And before I put this movement back in the clock, I want to do a function test. And I want to show you something. First of all, you will see that this tab doesn't go all the way into the teeth of the rack, but let's count the cuckoos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Y'all didn't see that, so we're going to do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And the reason why it's cuckooing 13 times, when the clock goes into warning, not necessarily when it's cuckooing, it could happen when it's cuckooing, but when the clock goes into warning, and if somebody is rotating the hand backwards, okay, the clock is in warning. You see what happens. Right here, there's pressure being put on this tail, the tab of the tail, because it's hitting this notch. Most of these notches are curved, but not all of them are curved. And so when it's putting pressure on the notch, it will jump to get past it. And it's putting pressure on that lever. And so it bends this tail, which will make your clock strike 13 times or 14 times or whatever. And so the easiest way, you can put separation between this lever and this lever, but I find the easiest way is just to bend this tab down. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bend this tab down, which will cause this not to drop so far. And now I have to get back over to the 12 o'clock position. Let me get rid of the stupid chain. It's getting in my way. these, because this clock has got the squirrels in the front that move, it's a pain in the rear. The more functions it has, the worse it is. It's on the 11 o'clock position. I might have bent it down too much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, but I was wanting to see what happens. That was the 11:30 position. I was wanting to see where this is in relation to the 12 o'clock position. I might have to move the snail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I bent it down too much. And so, but it is fully seated in the notch. So I'm going to take an awl or something to scratch on this thing so I can mark where the 12 o'clock position is. You should be able to see I put a scratch on this thing. So now I have to bend that tab of the tail, so when the rack falls, it goes in that notch. So now I got it bent, and now it goes into the notch where I got the arrow marked, and it goes all the way in that notch. If it doesn't go all the way in that notch, you just got to bend this tab more or less. If it's sticking on the outside of that notch, it will skip and it'll cuckoo more times than you want it to. So let's count it now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I'm happy with that. That was 12 o'clock position. The 12:30 position, this tab is going to be right in this area up around the 1 when it activates. And the 1 o'clock position is going to be right there on the 1 section, at the beginning of the 1 section. If it was on the lower half of the 1 section, I wouldn't be happy with it. I would move the snail because, and as you can see, I'm not happy with this because it's not falling into the notch where it's not falling all the way into the notch. So I'm going to move this tab some more because I want this to fall into that notch in every number. And that's why you do these function tests. So now when I trip it, it's falling directly into that notch. But I need to go around and do every number to make sure that this tab of the rack is falling directly into each notch before I put this movement back in the case. And if you do anything, if you bend whatever, you need to go through a function test to make sure everything works. And I'm going to show you why. You just got through. This is the 12 o'clock position. But because I bent this tab, you see where the 12 o'clock, where the tab is hitting the 12? It's at the beginning of the 12. And anyway, I'm going to show you what happens. It just got through striking 12 times. Because you see where the tab is? It's in the notch of the one that I put that arrow on. So it just got through striking 12 times. This is the 12:30 position. And you see where the tab is? The tab is I'm going to show it to you. The tab is not quite in the middle. So it already struck 12 once. So I'm going to rotate the hands more. Guess what? It's going to strike 12 again. Actually, it's going to strike 13 because it was above my arrow that I marked. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I'm not happy where the snail is. Instead of bending that tab more, I'm just going to move the snail. But it's got really small eclipse on it, which I hate. So now I have this tab in the middle of the 12 o'clock position. So, and it went into the notch where I marked. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now the half hour position, you see where this tab is? The half hour position is fixing to strike. And the tab is almost to the 1 o'clock position tab. So as long as it gets on that 1 o'clock position tab, which it does, I'm happy. I have the chains started in the case, and you will notice I don't have the pendulum leader wire on the movement. You don't want it on the movement. There's not a lot of room, and so you have to get this lever in there. You got to get this wire in the case. So the pendulum leader wire needs to be straight as an arrow. So take it off before you go to take the item out of the case or put it back in the case, because you don't want to bend it. So now I have to get the wire that trips the music box, which is this wire right here that I have connected to my magnetic screwdriver, in that hole of this black lever. So I'm going to do that off camera. And I want to be able to put this movement in this case without any distractions. So this part right here that stops the governor pan, I took it off. The bird, I took it off. So there's nothing else I could take off. And so now it's time to put the movement into the case. So now it's time to follow some simple instructions. That way, because you know the movement works outside the case. I don't have the bird connected. The movement's in. I don't have the music connected. Don't have the bellows connected. But I want to see if it cuckoos and whether it shuts off. And so rotate the hands to see if it cuckoos. It cuckooed and shut off. So I know it's working. And I'm going to do that for every piece that I put on. I'm going to put the bird on. I'm going to make sure it works. I'm going to put the bellows on. I'm going to make sure it works. Every piece that I put on, I want to make sure it works. And the most important piece is that governor fan. Put this on, make sure it cuckoos and stops. And then, once you get the cuckoo working, you simply work on the music. And in this case, the wire has to go over the little man's neck. If it goes over his body, it pushes him out, and he cannot come back in the door that well. And so, anyway, take it in steps, and you'll be able to repair your clock. One step at a time. Put something on, do a function test. Put something on, do a function test. I got the bird on, and you will notice that this door is crooked, and I'm going to let him mess with that. And the reason why it's crooked is because this staple is not in right. But my buddy can fix that. I'm not going to do everything for him. as you can see, I got the door, the bird in the center of the door. I got the wire completely smushed, and when I let go of the door, it slams. But now I have to do a function test because I told you with every step, you want to make sure everything's working. And because these wires for the squirrels are in the way, it's creating issues. And so it did work. So now I put the next piece on. The next piece I put on is this wire that stops the governor fan. And when I move it, it goes back where it's supposed to go. I also straightened out that wire. It was really bent. So now I'm going to do a function test because I want to make sure it stops cuckooing. Again, these stupid wires for the squirrels are in the way. And it stopped cuckooing. I'm going to do another function test. And it stopped cuckooing. So that means, again, this wire was touching the governor assembly housing, and that's why it just kept cuckooing and cuckooing and cuckooing, because it wouldn't allow the rack stop lever to come down. The hardest part about doing all this is putting the bellows on, and then because of the squirrels, and then adjusting the music. I'm not going to put the bellows in yet. I'm going to adjust the music box first because I need all the space to put tools in to bend that wire, and I don't want the bellows in my way. You don't have to put the bellows in immediately. Work on the music first. So that's what I'm going to do now. You only want, I'm going to show you how far that black lever bends. That was on the half hour. And the music only plays on the hour. It moved from here to here, which is 3/8 of an inch, and you only need about 1/8 of an inch space in between that wire and that black lever. Hopefully this wire bender will work. That's what I don't like about these wire benders. They don't always fit on the wires that you want them to fit on. I don't want the music to play on the hour, on the half hour, but I want it to play on the hour. And so I want to see whether this black lever will pull out the, I want to see if that black lever will pull out the lever for the music on the hour only. That was a half hour. I got pressure on the music chain. And it didn't do what I wanted it to do. Plus there was a little bit of a resistance. So I'm not gonna bend the wire anymore. I'm just gonna bend this black lever. And I'm gonna pull on the music chain while I trip the black lever. These stupid squirrel wires are in the way. I need to put this thing on my stand. Now you get that wire out of the way. I'll be back. There is resistance when I turn the minute nut to get this thing to play music. And I'm pretty sure I know why. When I put this skewer in, I got the black mark to where this black lever is. when I put the skewer all the way in against the wood. Now when you put the skewer in against the wood on the brass piece, you will see it doesn't line up with that black mark. So you can't bend the brass lever to come back toward the rear of the movement. So you're going to have to figure out how to bend this black lever to go toward the front of the movement. And that is something that should have been done prior to putting the movement in the case, but I didn't. And I didn't realize it was that far out. So I'm going to try to figure out how to make it closer to the front of the case. Because the black lever's here, the brass lever's here, this barbecue skewer represents that wire, and it can't pull it out properly. If it was lined up, it would easily be able to pull it out, but because it's at an angle, when it goes into warning, the minute hand gets tight, and that's because it's trying to pull this brass lever at an angle. The way I zip tied the wires that connect to the squirrel to the case so they don't get my dang way, which seems to work well. When I rotate the hands, here comes the half hour. It cuckooed, music didn't play. That's what you want, because it only has one song. On the hour, hands still seem kind of tight, and that's because the stupid wire is going across that guy's head. But it does play music, so now what I need to do is add a weight for the time to see if the weight itself will trip the music. So this thing has been in warning for over 10 minutes now, and I'm pretty sure I know the issue, and if my friend would have done what I told him to do, I wouldn't be seeing this clock. But when I turn the minute hand, it cuckoos and it plays music. Remember I told you about those plastic wheels, if they were cracked or if they're loose? You know, the crutch assembly's been swinging away. I don't have the pendulum leader wire on it because I want it to swing away really fast. But if those plastic wheels are cracked or if they're loose, when the clock tries to, when the clock goes in warning where it's got more pressure put on it, the plastic wheels will slip on those arbors and the minute hand will not ever turn. So now I gotta take this stupid movement back out. I got the movement out and I'm checking this wheel. This wheel is nice and tight. However, I told you there's two plastic wheels on this thing. This plastic wheel here, I can easily turn. And I shouldn't be able to easily turn that wheel. And again, when there's pressure put on it, you see I'm turning the minute arbor and I'm holding that wheel. I shouldn't be able to hold that wheel. It should rotate. And so I'm going to have to take this movement all apart and fix that wheel. And I told my friend to check that wheel, and apparently he didn't. He's got other movements that he could have used, but I guess that's what I'm for. One of his issues is this lift lock lever, which strips the music. It's supposed to have an E-clip right here, and it didn't have an E-clip. What sucks about this movement is the fact that it doesn't have a screw to take the 8-point star wheel off, so that's going to be fun. I'm going to have to apologize. I've checked several movements. They all turn this easily. I guess it was designed that way for a clutch system. But anyway, I'm gonna put this movement back together, and the because I had to take the movement apart, I discovered this piece was missing the clip, which is going to put that in a bind, and I was able to bend this closer to the movement so it's more lined up with that spring, with that wire. But always thought, I never paid attention to it, always thought that this wheel was tight on this arbor, but I was wrong, and I admit when I'm wrong. So now I got to put it all back together. And while I'm here, people are going to want to know how I got this part off. And putting a long pair of tweezers underneath it, keeping the tweezers tight, and then taking a hammer and pounding the tweezers down forces this up. It's, you should be able to do the same thing with this, but I was using the wrong tweezers, but I'm going to go ahead and take it off and show you what I was talking about. And if I screw it up, I got more parts. So that is something that you have to be willing to do. If you screw it up, you got to have more parts to replace your screw ups. Why they created these things without screws, I have no idea. But as you can see, I was able to get it off by using a pair of tweezers. This wasn't bent when I started. I tried a different pair of tweezers, but they were too big, and I bent it. But it can be straightened, so I have that technology. Over a socket, give it a light tap, and now it's nice and straight. Now you want to make sure that all the teeth are at a 90-degree angle, all the tabs, or it will cause your cuckoo to cuckoo plenty. And by the way, these are the tweezers that I started with. You can see that they don't have that much of an angle to it versus these tweezers. These are the tweezers that I eventually use versus these tweezers. I've got several tweezers around here, but the smallest pair of tweezers that I got, it's laying on my desk somewhere. And when you're putting parts together, you want to pay attention to what you're doing, or you're going to end up doing what I did. And I got this thing on wrong. It needs to go never mind, I got it on right. I thought I screwed up there for a second. But you the way you put that back on is you have to find a shaft that'll fit on this arbor. You take yourself a wooden dowel, drill a hole in it, stick it on here, and then tap this side down, and make sure you don't bend that shaft when you tap it down, or you might be having to straighten it out. But anyway, it only goes on so far, and it would have been best to mark it before you take it off. Take and scratch the arbor on the top of this pinion here before you take it off. That way you know how far you got to put it back on. And this is the reason I hardly ever get my clocks going, because I'm constantly helping out my friends. You know, my friend is really good to me. I could show you several clocks that he gave me. And in fact, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to show you some of the clocks that he gave me. When I say he gave me, I drive to his house, I help him out, and he gives me clocks because I don't want any money to help him out. Postman's clock, made around 1850, he gave me. Herbert Herr shelf cuckoo clock he gave me. And this clock he gave me last time, Seth Thomas Sonora 5-bell clock. GK Cuckoo Railroad clock. Seth Thomas Sonora system chimes on rods versus bells. I haven't wound it up in a little bit, but needs wound up. I personally like the rods better than I do the bells myself. Antique regulator clock he gave me, and these are just some of the clocks he gave me. He's given me several clocks, and that is why I take the time to help him out, because he's very kind to me. He blesses me, and I bless him. So I got the movement back together, and I got it all oiled. When I say I got it back together, I got the wheels inside the movement. I still got to put all the excess outside parts on. So in putting this movement together, you want to make sure that you oil all the pivots, only the parts that go round and round and round, to include the click springs on the great wheels, and to include the pallets, because you're not actually oiling the pallets, you're oiling the escapement teeth. That way it doesn't make any noise. But so now I have to put all the other parts back on. And remember, this is the part that was the issue. And so in order to put this on, you put the post through the hole, and then you got to add this spring. And then after you add that spring, there's two different divots in this post. There's this divot right here. The spring goes on below this divot, and you add a clip so the spring doesn't go any further. And then after you put this thing through the hole in the rear plate, you add the clip here. Now you're going to have the spring on, and that clip is to prevent this thing from going inside the post, and it was missing that clip, and that was the issue with this movement. And by the way, they went to this post right here, this lift lock lever, I want to say in the late 80s, early 90s, because in the 60s and the 70s, they have a lift lock lever that is separated, kind of like the rack. Let me find one. This one right here. It is separated. It has this arm right here, and then it has this bottom arm, which comes off the what Cheryl Adair and Adair's Repairs calls the hurricane symbol, which is this piece right here. And it looks like a hurricane symbol. Some people call it a shark fin, but it looks more like a hurricane symbol. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to Cheryl Adair's YouTube channel, I highly recommend that you do it. It's Adair's Repairs. I mention her channel and several other channels in the beginning of all my videos, and I tag her channel. I tag certain people's channels at the end of my video. Torshindell, Derek, I tagged his videos at the end of my videos because I want him to have 1,000 subscribers, and now he does. I have Cheryl Adair's link at the end of my videos because I want her to have 1,000 subscribers. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to make these videos, and we're passing out free information. Some people think that I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and that's fine. But I have people that thank me all the time, and so that's why I do it, to help people out, because I don't want people to go through the mistakes that I went through when I first started repairing clocks and cuckoo clocks. When I first started repairing clocks, there was no such thing as YouTube or Facebook. I watched a VHS tape over and over and over again, and I tore up a lot of clocks trying to teach myself. But anyway, I'm going to finish putting the movement back together, and because I took it all apart, guess what? I have to do function tests again. And so you always want to do a function test, just like I explained earlier, before you put this movement inside the case. I'm going to put the lift lock lever on and the rack stop lever, and then I'm going to show you what I do to put the gathering cam with gathering pen, or what I call Pac-Man, on. So stand by. And as you can see, this thing can come through this plate because it doesn't have the final clip on it. I think it should have a spring and a clip, but I'm gonna have to look at some of my movements to see. The rack stop lever, which is this lever right here, was slightly bent because when it got all the way up there, it wouldn't come back down. And I'm going to show you. See? And so you have to, it has to be able to fall freely. And so all I did was push on it, and now it falls freely. So to put the gathering cam with gathering pin on, what you do is you put pressure on the great wheel, and then that third wheel with warning pin is going to hit the tab on the rack stop lever. And so that's what it's doing. And then you just slide you put the Pac-Man where you want it, and then you push down. Let me take that back. To get the Pac-Man on, you put pressure on the great wheel and you drop the rack stop lever. And when you drop the rack stop lever, that third wheel warning pin is going to be hitting that tab on the rack stop lever. And then you're going to put a finger, a thumb, or whatever so that third wheel warning pin doesn't move. You're going to just shove it down the movement. And then you're going to grab a hold of the Pac-Man and you're going to put it where you want it and put it in place while your finger is still in that movement. And then you test it. And it's exactly where I want it to be doing. And what you can do, because this Pac-Man, depending on the strength in your arms, hands, whatever, is you grab something such as this wooden dowel here that I have, and with your fingers shoved in there, you put this wooden dowel over. You have to put it over the pin, the gathering pin, and you're gonna take a hammer and you're gonna tap on the wooden dowel just enough to push this Pac-Man down some. Now, if you push it down too far, it's going to be touching the rack stop lever, so you don't want to be putting it down too far. That part is done. So now, a lot of people will struggle over this. I do not like taking the gathering can with gathering pin off. Over time, because it's made of brass, you're going to wear out that hole. The only reason I took this off is because the 8-point star wheel didn't have a screw in it, so I had to take this off to take the movement apart and to take this 8-point star wheel off. Now, when you put this 8-point star wheel back on, you do not want it touching the movement. So I would suggest that you put something in there, such as a business card or a piece of wire or something. That way, when you tap on the the 8-point star wheel, it doesn't touch the movement. It's not coming off. It's on there. Because if it's touching the movement, friction will stop a clock, friction will stop it from cuckooing, etc. I'm going to finish putting the parts together and then do a function test and put this movement back in the clock, off camera. And this time around, before I actually screw down the movement, I'm doing my measuring. I got the black dot where the hole of the lever that goes into the spring is. And when I come over here to the brass piece, it's about halfway of where that black dot is. So I get to take the movement out and bend this forward and then test it again. Because like I said, you want that piece that has a spring attached to it in about the same position. But I couldn't bend it that far because of the feet where the screws go. So now it's in relatively the same position as that brass lever, but it's touching the wood just a little bit, so I need to back it off some. But I'm going to continue doing this until I'm happy, and then I'll put the screws in. Clock weight on, I'm not worried about that. The music is playing on the hour and the half hour, and the music's not stopping. It's an easy adjustment. The arm that comes off the movement needs to be bent to the left just a little bit. I end up taking the music box out. The wire that trips the music to start with, first of all, it's all dangled and screwed up, and I'm going to replace this wire. But it was hitting the little man, which was putting pressure on it. So I end up bending this little man forward some, and hopefully the door closes, because that was an issue that we were having. But also sometimes the lever would come out of the hole, and sometimes it wasn't, and a lot of it had to do with this stupid wire getting in a bind because the little man. And so I got that adjusted. The wire itself is still good, and so I straightened it out. And the way I did it is I got the wire itself will not fit in the drill, so I got these smaller 3-jaw chucks that I put in my drill. And just like I straightened everything else, put it on a bar, turning the drill slowly. And then now that wire is almost straight as an arrow. The only reason it's fluctuating is because the very end of the wire is still bent. And so I'm going to straighten the other part of the wire, because that's the part that goes into the black lever on the clock. And another reason why my videos are so damn long is because I seem to run into a lot of problems while repairing clocks. But you have to understand that my friend worked on this clock, and I worked on this clock at his house, and then after I left, something happened. But now the wire is straight as it's going to get. And manipulating the little man's wire some more, I bent the top part out toward the front of the clock and the bottom part toward the rear of the clock, so he goes back in the door. And now this wire clears his wire, so hopefully that will resolve the issue. And I'll put my weight back on. New glasses, and I still can't see. When I trip it, the music is playing, the governor fan is spinning, But the wheel that attaches to the governor fan, the one that has typically the plastic wheel on it, the governor fan needs bushings, but I'm not going to do that. It's really small bushings. He has a bushing machine. If he wants bushings in it, he could do it. I showed this before in other videos to put the music box back in. If you were to take a toothpick or a wire or whatever and stick it through the hole in the roof and then stick it through the hole that the plate goes in, you'll be able to line up the holes. I already got one screw in. Now I have to put this screw in. It's kind of, you learn things as you work on clocks and try to find out the easiest method possible to help you out, basically. The chain, even though I had it lined up, wasn't lined up. Now it's lined up. So now I need to put that wire in that that trip lever that comes off the movement, and I'm going to do that off camera. Sorry for the delay, but I had to turn my camera around to zoom in. This is a clock stand of mine that I got the music box attached to. I ended up taking the music box back out because I wasn't happy with it. So I want to test it a few times while it's on the stand. And it's working perfectly on the stand. And I'm going to show you what I think what was wrong with it, why I wasn't happy. This brass piece that's got the notch in it for this wire to go back into, it was touching the housing of the wood, so I backed it off some. And that's why most clock repair people refuse to work on musical cuckoo clocks, because it takes a lot of time in diagnosing the issues. And sometimes I hate cuckoo clocks. I hate cuckoo clocks sometimes, because if I was doing this for a living, time is money. And let's say I charge minimum wage of around $14, $15 an hour. I probably have almost 10 hours in this clock right now. So that's $150. I'm not done with it. Altogether, I probably have 20 hours in this clock. That's $300. Because I was at my friend's house. It's a one-day musical cuckoo clock, all right? Depending on where you live, they run anywhere from $150 to $300 for this small of a clock. In New York, you can Google this. I'm not BSing you. In New York, standard fee and in other states, standard fee for working on cuckoo clocks, servicing just your basic cuckoo clock, no music, is $300. With music, $350 on up. Count wheel movements, meaning the antique clocks, even more. So that's why you could find a lot of clocks for cheap, because people can't afford to spend $350 on a clock that's only worth $150. Yeah, it has to be very sentimental to them in order for them to pay that much money. And so with my YouTube videos, and not just my YouTube videos, just Michael Anderson, Cheryl Adair, Mark Dalton, and I advertise these folks' channels at the beginning of my videos. Take advantage of this free information and please subscribe to these channels. We're not making money off these YouTube videos. We only do it because we want to help people out. Yes, it would be nice to make extra money, but if I was in it for the money, I would have quit posting YouTube videos a long freaking time ago. I currently make with YouTube, you have to have $200 in account before they give you $100. All right, so you always have to have $100 in this account. So when I first started my YouTube channel, 4 or 5 years ago, it took 3 years to get 1,000 subscribers, and then I was getting paid every 3 months, about $100. So if you look at the time that I have invested in all these YouTube videos and helping people out, I might be making 5 cents an hour. This brass lever here is what goes into the hole of the drum. If it's bent, if this curve is bent too far up, it will not allow the system to be released easily. If it's bent too far down, when that wire is tripped, it's going to go back into the hole. It has to be bent a little bit up to allow when the wire trips it, it comes out of that hole and it comes up on the top portion of the drum. But because the way it's designed, as it rotates, it's going to fall back in that notch that it's going in, and it stops. If the governor pan is being stopped by the tab that's connected to this brass lever, all you have to do is bend this brass lever so it goes in toward the chain more, which will push the lever away from the brass, from the band that stops it. But that band has to stop it when the very last note is played. The lever has to stop the fan when the very last note is played. If not, this brass lever is going to go further and further into that hole, and that wire can't trip it. I've tested this. Well, now the chain, the weight is almost on the floor again. I've already pulled it up once. But like I said, I'm going to continue doing this until I'm completely satisfied before I put this movement back into the clock. Here I have a bamboo skewer, and I'm going to trip the music with this bamboo skewer, and it should be able to trip it. As you can see, it's not, I've had to put a lot of pressure on that bamboo skewer to trip it, so it's not adjusted right. Now I can easily trip it with this bamboo skewer, so now it's adjusted properly, that the lever that comes off the movement should be able to trip it itself. That's several times that I was able to trip it with this bamboo skewer, and as you can see, I'm able to trip it without this thing bending. And like the bamboo skewer trick, well, here I have a piece of masking tape taped to that wire. As you can see, I didn't put a lot of pressure on it, and that masking tape would have slipped off that wire if it wasn't adjusted right. So the lever coming off the movement should easily be able to trip this music. A couple things. I shortened the bird's tail because it was in the way. They don't have to be that damn long. But you sit here, I don't have the bellows in yet, but you sit here, you're gonna hear the cuckoo go off, and then you're gonna hear the music go off, which we're getting there. And I think the main thing was that housing for the chain was touching the wood, and that was creating a problem for the music box. It was rubbing against the base of the wood that the music box attaches to. I'll probably speed this video up when I post it. That way you don't hear nothing, because I, believe it or not, I don't have a lot to say, and that's amazing. Sitting here smoking my cigarette, relaxing. But cuckoo clocks, like I said, there goes a cuckoo, and there's the music. So now all I have to do is connect the bellows and connect the wires that make the squirrels move. And it shut off. Now the wires to make the squirrels move in front, there's a short wire that, this is the wire that moves the squirrel. And then there's a short wire that goes from here to the lift arm for the low note lift lever. Same way for the high note lift lever. The I'm gonna knock something over yet. The pendulum, sorry, the cuckoo bellow wire goes on, and it attaches to the high note lever like so. And then once I cut the zip tie, you will see when I move the low note bellow that the squirrel moves. And it'll move even more than that when it's doing its thing. Actually, if I move the low note lever, you can see the squirrel move. And so I just have to cut this zip tie, connect the wire that is attached to the squirrel on the left side to the high note lever, and I should be done. As you can see, the squirrels are moving. And the music should have played. So I'm gonna let this thing run to make sure the cuckoo and the music play on the hour. And we'll have to put the dial on and the hands. There's a half hour. I hope y'all like this video. Give me a thumbs up, leave me some comments. Subscribe not only to my channel, but to all the other channels mentioned at the beginning of this video. And may God bless each and every one of you.